Inside a Florida federal courtroom, a shocking scene left spectators, reporters, and even courtroom staff stunned. Ryan Wesley Routh, the man accused of trying to assassinate former president and presidential candidate Donald Trump, was just found guilty on all major charges. But what caught everyone off guard was what happened immediately afterward. Routh attempted to stab himself in front of the judge and jury. Security officers rushed in instantly to stop him, preventing what could have turned into an even more chaotic and tragic moment. This unexpected courtroom drama added an intense and disturbing twist to a case that had already been making national headlines for months. From the moment of his arrest on Trump's West Palm Beach golf course to this verdict, the trial has been followed closely across the country. And now, the bizarre and dangerous self-inflicted act has become a defining moment in this already unprecedented legal battle. The trial itself had captured attention not just for the seriousness of the charges, but also for Routh's unusual decision to represent himself in court. Over the course of 2 weeks, jurors listened to testimony from federal officers, forensic experts, and witnesses who described the events of that day. Prosecutors argued that Routh was fully prepared for violence, bringing a firearm with an obliterated serial number, ammunition, and intent to kill. Despite his attempts to question witnesses and argue his case, his lack of legal training became clear. The jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before returning unanimous guilty verdicts. These included attempted assassination of a major presidential candidate, assaulting a federal officer, firearm possession by a convicted felon, and possessing a firearm in furtherance of a violent crime. The speed of the verdict suggested the evidence against him was overwhelming and that his self-defense strategy failed to make a serious impact. Among the most serious findings was that Routh had illegally obtained a firearm with its serial number removed, something prosecutors emphasized as proof of intent and planning. Combined with testimony about his behavior on the golf course, jurors were convinced this was no spontaneous act. The fact that Routh was already a convicted felon, barred from owning firearms, made the charges even more severe. Prosecutors painted him as a dangerous man who took deliberate steps to carry out a violent attack. Legal experts following the case noted that representing oneself is often considered reckless, especially in complex trials like this one. Without professional legal strategy, defendants rarely succeed, and this case was no exception. For many observers, the quick verdict highlighted not only the strength of the government's case, but also the risks of self-representation, especially when facing charges that could potentially carry a life sentence. The drama, however, did not stop with the verdict. In a startling and chaotic moment, Routh attempted to stab himself immediately after the jury announced he was guilty. Reports say he produced a sharp object, though it remains unclear how he managed to obtain it within the strict security of a federal courthouse. Courtroom deputies and federal marshals acted quickly, wrestling him to the ground and preventing further harm. Witnesses described the atmosphere as tense and frightening, with gasps erupting across the room as the situation unfolded. Officials later confirmed that while Routh was restrained and taken into custody without additional injuries to others, the bizarre event will likely trigger a full review of security procedures inside the courthouse. The incident not only underscored the high emotions surrounding the trial, but also showed the desperation of a man now facing the rest of his life behind bars. With guilty verdicts now secured, Ryan Wesley Routh awaits sentencing, and legal experts predict the outcome will be extremely severe. Attempted assassination of a presidential candidate alone carries a maximum punishment of life in prison, and the additional firearm and assault charges only increase the likelihood of a long sentence. Beyond the immediate outcome, the case also reignites a broader discussion about political security, law enforcement preparedness, and the dangers posed by armed individuals intent on violence. For many Americans, this trial is another reminder of how fragile safety can feel in today's climate, and why protective measures around public figures remain so critical. While the attempted self-harm drew headlines, the lasting takeaway will be that the justice system moved swiftly to hold Routh accountable. In the end, the jury's decision reinforced that violent attacks against political leaders will face the full weight of federal law and carry the harshest